Very happy to introduce our faculty, CPA Mahalakshmi, Mahalakshmi Chakrabani. That is the way I know her from her CA Foundation times. So she is our proud alumni of Sreeram Coaching Point, CA Foundation Intermediate and the final. And the moment when she completed her CA Foundation, she was asking us where to join for articleship. Very rarely in the sense only to very good students, I recommend that firm where I did my articles. So uh, my employer was TAP Vardakutti and the firm name being TAP Vardakutti and Company. That is a firm in which she completed her articles. That is, she took up their articles. One of a very important CA student in Vardakutti sir's office. Very recently, I had the opportunity of meeting our sir. That was the time I was just telling him about this project and Mahalakshmi to be part of our team. The way in which he was expressing, I will put it in Tamil. ஏய் அவளாப்பா ஸ்டூடெண்டாக இருக்கும்போது நிறைய செமினார்லாம் பேசுவாப்பா ஷீ இஸ் அ கிரேட் ஸ்பீக்கர் ஸோ தட் வாஸ் ஹிஸ் ரிமார்க் அண்ட் still he remembers about her contribution because I know a chartered accountant as what sort of remark he will be making on his article student. So every time they will come with leave and all that, and he will have that sort of thinking. But a very great person was our TAP Vardakutti sir, and he was just recalling about her abilities even at the student times, and she qualified CPA all in one shot, like in CA examination. She landed at America along with newly wedded partner, and as part of honeymoon, she took the examination and cleared all in one stroke, and there was no surprise for me. So the rest of that, she was with Big Four, ENY and PwC, and now she is a CFO of MNC logistic company, right? And with time being the restricting factor to restrict the introduction, it is not that she's only 5 minutes worth and all that. I can go on telling, but the main point is that today she will be handling the very first topic of BEC, ERM and internal control. And I just give the floor to Mahalakshmi, and with her teaching and your dedication, definitely you people will be clearing the examination in the very first chance. Now the floor is to be taken by Mahalakshmi. Yes.
Sure. Thank you so much, sir. In fact, I am more blessed to hear all very nice comments from you, actually. So, yeah, I used to be the older days during class, etc. I used to be afraid, actually, even to come for any queries, etc. to ask you. So, from you getting such nice comments, I'm feeling very blessed. Thank you, and thank you for bringing up Vardakutti, sir. Very nice. Years those were for my articleship, both personally and work wise, learning wise. Very peaceful. It was like a holistic period, actually. So that is what I miss these days. Even now, I used to think maybe I should have continued in his firm, rather than taking up all other opportunities, actually. So that is how it is compared to
Even today, I
that. Yeah.
just feel that way. Whatever a little practice I have, all that I will just learn in my times between 84 and 86. I did my articles only for 2 years. Last 1 year, I had my industrial training, but those 2 years of learning was much greater. Later on, I had my brief stint at Deloitte, and I will not say Deloitte's tenure there really had added any great value. It's not that no value. So, but definitely the initial learning of audit and how to handle the scenario was something marvelous. And our sir will never get angry. How much ever grave mistakes that we commit, he will be keeping quiet. And in a meeting in their office, I was talking about a sir. And by that point of time, our sir said, "Don't talk anything about me. Our students know better." I said, "No, sir. Something which you do not know, I am going to tell." The point which I want to tell you, and now I will take some more time. See, I attended his daughter's wedding, I mean reception, the previous day to the wedding day. So I was the last guest in that particular reception. So after having the dinner there and talking to our batchmates, when I reached back, that is when I returned to home, I got a call saying that the jewelry, important jewelry of his daughter got stolen, and the Mangal Sutra also was stolen. This was conveyed at about 11:30 in the night. Next day is the marriage. So there was no panic. He immediately rang up GRT and talked to that owner, and he said, "This is the scenario." He said, "Sir, I just come for having my dinner. So in 15 minutes time, I will be there in the shop." So next to 15th minute, our sir went there and had the purchases, paid cash. Please understand, paid cash, came there, and next day the marriage got really well, and he lodged a complaint, and all that matter was different. So just imagine a person on the previous day, he never lost a cool. He was only looking into what is the next course of action. So an average person would have really emotionally got down, but he is not of that particular type. He will find, even in the most wanted situation, he will not be down. He will see what is the next course of action. And never he will express his emotion, outburst, and how much ever grave mistakes I have committed, such grave mistakes and all that, which I don't want to share before you, but he let it go, went it, that is, he allowed it to go. And he said, it's a learning experience. And I'll never forget Sir in my life. So very recently I had the opportunity. Once again, I will be meeting in another few more days our Sir. So sorry to
Very nice,
interrupted.
very nice. No,
I,
no,
I
no
do not know as
problem.
whether you know about this particular thing.
No, no,
Our
I didn't
Sir
know. That's
is,
what I was surprised actually. So
in
that time
fact,
I was part of the article students there actually when his daughter
oh,
was
oh, oh,
the
oh,
first daughter or the second daughter
second,
you're
second,
referring?
second.
Oh, okay, okay. Second daughter, I finished the articleship and came out. I don't know about that. Okay, okay. But as you said, what no, that is the main reason why now I said that I should have continued there rather than taking up all other opportunities, going around multiple firms or companies, etc. No, that it's very peaceful, and you learn, and you're at your best. Actually, that's what I will say.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So that kind of a person is very rare. Nice, nice. Thank you, sir. So, okay. So we can get started. Maybe I will share the screen. It's not giving an option to share. Usually that will appear down here. I'm just checking. Mm,
See, I will show you where it will be appearing normally.
Yeah, connected via web browser. So usually in the bottom it will show.
So
It
it'll
is
come
not
like this way.
showing
I
now.
will just show you. Hmm?
Yeah.
Hmm?
I think so. You'll have in the top right corner
Right.
before. I mean, beside mic and camera. But
Ah,
even
yes,
I'm.
yes. Yes, yes, it is there.
There is
Correct.
arrow mark. Share.
Yeah, yeah. I was searching on the bottom. So it's the usual place. Okay, fine.
In Zoom, it comes like that only. The bottom it comes.
Zoom and Skype it comes.
So is my screen visible?
Yes.
Okay, but I'm not able to see you all.
Here I am.
Yeah, and if I am opening this window, okay, fine, that's fine. We will continue. Okay, so this topic that we are going to cover today is on enterprise risk management. Okay, so section 5100 in BEC talks about ERM, enterprise risk management, and internal controls, and in the end, business processes. Okay, so in today's class, we will focus on ERM, enterprise risk management, and we will get started with internal controls and go through a few aspects of internal controls. So that is the plan for today. Okay, so directly jumping into the topic. So we will go with the material available, and I will highlight the key aspects and maybe share some practical things what I have seen in corporates, etc. as we proceed. Okay, so enterprise risk management. So the topic, the term itself is very clear, right? It has three things in it: enterprise, so at entity level, right? It across the organization fully, and risk management. So it is talking about how a company should manage overall, right? It's at a very high level. I'm saying how a company and an organization would manage its risks. Okay, so looking at the definition, so here we have a committee of sponsoring organizations of Treadway Committee. So this is in short COSO. So COSO is very key organization for these topics on ERM, on internal controls, on fraud controls, etc. So it's something like what we have here, right? Auditing standards, etc. So similar to that, COSO comes up with various principles, various thought frameworks on some of these topics. So as per COSO, enterprise risk management is a process. So first of all, it's a process, okay? And it is at high level affected by entities, board of directors, management. So it's at such a high level. So it is designed, deployed by the management and entities board of directors. And where all it is applied, it's, as I said, it's throughout the organization, across the enterprise, and mainly starting from strategy setting. So if you look at COSO framework for internal controls is more popular. So between these two frameworks, the only difference is strategy setting. So ERM covers strategy setting. From there it starts and it moves throughout all the areas across the enterprise. And what is it designed to? So what is the purpose of ERM? So ERM is designed to identify risks, right? Risks, any potential event that can affect the organization's operations or its goals, etc. So any such event that can have an effect on the entity. And ERM process is also designed to mainly manage the risk. Okay, so manage the risk such that it is within your tolerance levels. Okay, so it's not like completely minimize the risk to zero. So there'll be a tolerance level that a company is willing to face. Okay, so to that level, you address the risk and minimize them or manage them. And it provides reasonable assurance regarding the achievement of entity objectives. So this is very key. Okay, so ultimately we need to achieve entities objectives. So in order to achieve the entities objectives, what are those potential events that can have an effect, etc., and manage those risks or events. So that is what this ERM is about at a crux level. Okay, so mostly here CPA is completely into application of concepts. So if you are clear with the concepts, what it is about, then you can answer any kind of question. It's not about memorizing, etc. It's about concepts. So once you are clear with that, it is easy. Okay, so just in a crux, if we have to summarize, ERM is a process that is designed to identify and also manage these potential events that will have an impact on the entity, and to provide reasonable assurance regarding the achievement of entity's objectives. Okay, and it is affected by the entity's board of directors and management.
Yeah.
Any queries?
No.
We're saying something.
No, good. Yeah, we're good.
Okay, perfect. So this level is okay, right, Manikandan? Or Any changes?
Mahalakshmi, I'm
Are you
also
more
a
detailed
student.
or? Oh, sorry. Yes, sir. You can tell me. I mean, is this detail is fine, or we can go at a higher level or more detail? You can tell me.
No, for me this is good, ma'am. Actually, I'm good with this.
Yes, for
Okay,
me also.
perfect. Okay, super. Okay, so moving further, so definition we are clear. So moving further, so the purpose, by now we would have understood actually some of those purpose aspects, right? So what ERM is mainly designed towards achieving or getting a reasonable assurance in achieving the entity's objectives by managing the risks, uncertainties, any potential events, etc. So there's one more key point here is using the resources in an effective and an efficient manner. So by addressing your risk, focusing on the right risks, okay, and addressing it in the right way. So what you're ultimately doing, you're managing your resources in an effective way and efficient way. So that is also another key point that we need to keep in mind. So objectives. So same way, I mean, moving further from purpose into objectives. So objectives of ERM framework would be firstly, this reasonable assurance. So this reasonable word is again very important. Nowhere you can have absolute assurance. So here, because it is all human element judgments that are involved, so that is why we are mentioning here the objectives as attaining reasonable assurance that companies' goals are achieved, objectives are achieved. Okay, so that's the first key objective. And if we go further, so continuously assess risks and identify any such events, potential events, etc. So it's continuously again is a key point. It's ERM is not like a one point exercise. Okay, it's continuous. It's we need to review, reassess, see if it is still relevant in the current scenario, etc. So periodically the company will have to do, or the apt word is continuously. Okay, and the next key objective is achieving the financial and performance targets. So first we saw the objectives, right, the overall goals and objectives. So one level down to that is the financial targets, performance targets. So to meet its targets, ERM will help. And another key aspect is avoid adverse publicity and damage to entities reputation. So ERM is primarily into risk management, right? So there is no focus only on financial risk, etc. As I said, it starts from strategy and moves all across the entity. Okay, so you will have regulatory risk, you will have competition risks, you will have so many various components of risks that will get captured here, a kind of a risk universe. So that way every aspect is covered. So you're looking at your goals, objectives, it gets covered. Your reputation gets covered, any compliance aspects gets covered, your resources are efficiently managed, you continuously manage all all the events or whatever uncertainties or surprises, etc., right? You keep continuously identifying them and manage them and achieve your targets. So that's a cohesive way to understand the purpose or objectives of ERM. Okay, so moving further, so COSO ERM framework again groups these objectives into four aspects. Okay, so strategic, right, starting from the strategy, company strategy, mission, vision, etc. From there, and moving down to operations, then to reporting, then to compliance. So whatever objectives we saw here, right, on top, so achieving the objectives, adverse publicity, reputation, etc. So those are getting grouped in a different way as per the COSO framework. So it covers strategic, ensuring that the goals support the entity's mission, vision, etc. Right. So overall, the CEO will have a vision, mission, etc. So whether that is actually getting met by whatever goals the company is fixing, right? So to that extent, even the alignment, etc. From that perspective, from there it starts, right, at strategy level. So moving further to performance operation aspects, right? Whether my resources are put into the right way and in an efficient way. Then comes reporting, ensuring reliable reporting. So this is where to some extent we have the financial reporting, risks, all that. Then the compliance aspects. So here your reputation, all that gets covered. Compliance to laws, regulations. So more or less, this is similar to if you have already seen the internal control COSO cube. This is similar. There also you will have operations, reporting, compliance. But one additional thing is the strategy. Strategy is what is the additional one when you come to ERM framework.
So, ma'am, can we just tie this up with the objectives? So each and every objective, If we
Yeah.
study it up, then it will be easy for us to remember, right? Just
Yes. So strategy. So here is where your company's goals and objectives are achieved. Right. The first one, what we saw here.
yeah, achieving the
Right.
overall
This is
objectives.
the overall objectives. Okay. So then comes continuously assessing risks and identifying action to take the resources to allocate to overcome. This will come in operations, right?
Yeah,
Ensure resources are used effectively and efficiently. Okay, and achieve its financial and performance targets. This will again come in strategy. Actually, it will overlap. So that's why if you see, they have given us 4 overlapping categories. So your targets
yeah,
can come here, strategy also, and operations also. It's both, right? Having a right target and achieving them in an efficient manner.
sure, ma'am.
And then adverse publicity, entity reputation, etc. will come under compliance.
Sure, yeah,
And reporting, actually, these targets will come all 3 here. See, the reporting is also important, right? The reliable, your whatever numbers you're reporting in your returns, financials have to be reliable. Okay, we'll
yeah,
proceed.
Yes, yes.
Okay. Okay, so then limitations, as I just touched upon earlier. So you cannot have absolute assurance. Definitely, it is all man-made. So human error, judgmental error. There could be collusion, etc., between people and management override aspects. So all these aspects are there, right? So still, even though you have a complete very continuously operating ERM, very much reviewed and monitored. You have a fully effective, efficient internal control system. Still, we have seen some organizations fail, right? So that's because of these limitations, actually. So it could be a management override, it could be collusion, or it could be human judgments. Broadly, some risks they would have prioritized wrongly, some risks they wouldn't have covered. There could be various things. So, but what we can try and do is have a comprehensive system in place, which would spread across your entire operations and have the risks identified and mitigation measures implemented. So that basic comprehensive detailed step needs to be taken. But still, those limitations would be there, which we need to be aware of.
yeah,
Okay, so now moving to the detailed framework, COSO framework. So this ERM framework came up in 2004. Okay, so this is the initial framework, and after this in 2017, again the framework got updated. Okay, so update elements were with few aspects of relevance, right? In a period of actually this 10 to 15 years, there were a lot of changes in terms of technology, in terms of globalization, etc. So that's the reason why COSO came up with an update in 2017. So we can go through this 2004 framework. We will go through both. Okay, so you will have a better idea, and overall, the understanding that you will have would be better when we go through both the sets. Okay, so this framework will have 8 components. Okay, so COSO comes up with these kinds of components, principles, etc. Very formal way of defining these concepts. Okay, so what does an ERM comprise of? So okay, so it starts with tone at the top, right at the top, right? What kind of ethics, integrity, the management and board is giving down to the whole company. How much of commitment to competence is there? So what kind of culture that the company wants to build? Then the risk management philosophy. So that means what? Whether the company wants to take more risks, go out to the market, take more risks, or you want to be conservative, etc. Okay, so that includes the risk appetite, etc. So to what extent I'm okay to take up the risk. Risk means you take up the opportunity also, right? So it's both ways. So you face the risk, take up the opportunity, and come up and achieve. Okay, so to what extent the company wants to do that, all of that is part of this component, that is the internal environment. Okay, so it will be similar to the entity level controls, kind of, so which will talk about ethical values, accountability, commitment to competence, etc. So tone at the top. So what is the tone at the top? That only gets drilled down to the organization. So that's why this is very key component actually. Okay, so next component is objective setting. So we need to have a process, okay, to formulate the objectives uh, in order to assess and respond the risk. So this is slightly different. It's I mean, we need to go by the words here. So management must put into place a process to formulate objectives. So what objectives in order to help the company assess and respond to risk. So it's like it's slightly reverse. Normally we say risk and then you identify the risk and address the risk in achieving your objectives, right? So that's how it is, but it's here it is slightly different. So you assess the risk and respond to risk. In that process you formulate some of the objectives. So it's like objectives of the ERM framework. Okay. So then moving further is event identification. So here, how does a company identify these uncertainties, surprises, events, risks? Okay, so practically how it works in organizations is workshops method. Okay, so there will be a detailed set of workshops where all the key stakeholders, key function heads would be interviewed, met, and the discussions on what are the risks from the key stakeholders perspective, okay, from the function heads perspective. So that would be captured. So that's a workshop method. So also one more is data analysis. So all the set of data, financial data and other non-financial data, everything can be analyzed. Okay, market research data, etc., can be analyzed, and from the data we can come up with the risks. So there are various methods here. Also process analysis, process reviews can be done, and also from there the risks can be captured. So that is what here under event identification it is covered actually, how various risks are identified. Okay, so then comes the risk assessment. So here what do we do? Every risk is not an important risk for the organization, right? So there is an element of likelihood. Okay, how much sure that this risk will definitely, this event will definitely happen. Okay, so there's a likelihood component. And if it happens, what would be the impact? Even if it happens, the impact may be less also. Already I may have controls, or I may not be operating in that place or area or geography, etc. So it may not be relevant to me. So from that perspective, so likelihood and impact is very important. So basis that every risk will get assessed, and a rating or a ranking can be given. Each organization can have various ways to assess this. And when we assess the risk, both quantitative and qualitative. So quantitative comes from your financial systems, market research data, etc. Qualitative from the workshops, discussions. So it could be, say, qualitative means, say, to what extent uh, estimations are possible or judgments are possible in a particular function, department, or that area. Okay, so something like that. That is a qualitative one. To what extent you have a full-fledged ERP, or you use a very small legacy accounting system, etc. So these could be some of the qualitative factors that you could use to assess the risks. So now we have covered three. Okay, so first we talked about the environment, tone at the top. Then we spoke about objective setting. So what is it that the ERM has to do here? Then comes the event identification, risks. How do you identify the risks, capture them, etc., and how do you assess these risks? And then come up with a risk response. So risk response, here you have four methods. So either you can avoid the risks totally, you can stop that activity, whatever activity that you're doing, or you can stop a particular, shut down a particular geography, etc. Say a particular branch in a particular area, things like that. Anything could be. So that is where you avoid the risk totally. Okay, then risk reduction. So here is where you will have some controls, mitigating controls. So you can have devise some controls, etc., so that the risk is mitigated or managed. Right. Then risk sharing. So this is where you have a joint venture, etc. So a company may be very good in any kind of business it takes up. It may be very good in achieving that. Another company may be good at technology, a particular that technical know-how, etc. So both together as a joint venture, you can come up with. So that's a kind of a sharing risk scenario. Risk acceptance is okay. This is like an inherent risk, right? So after you do everything, still you may accept some element of risk. So these are the 4 kinds of risk response mechanism.
Yeah.
Okay, and then so the 6th, 7th, 8th component are similar to the internal control COSO framework. So this talks about control activities. So an ARM framework, it does not stop with risks. Okay, so you will also have what control activities or what policy procedures I need to have, so that whatever risk response I am having here is achieved. Okay, so that is primarily talking about policies and procedures in having the risk response getting thoroughly implemented. Okay, then comes information and communication. So this is where see any process, unless the information and communication is perfectly done, that process will not work out, right? So this is where ERM will use the company's communication mechanisms to have its basic source data, and also that's the communication channel where the ERM output will also be communicated. For example, the policies and procedures that we saw here, right, just before, the control activities. So how do you implement them? Via trainings, communication, announcements, company guidance, announcements, etc. Okay, so sometimes ERM may come up with, okay, these are the key aspect of risks, or this is what we need to focus on next 6 months, or this is how the targets are getting revised, etc. So all those outputs you will communicate using the company's communication channels. It can be internal, both external also. Okay, next, monitoring. ERM processes must also be monitored again. So whatever activities that we spoke, right, on top, identifying risk, assessing risk. So whether all these activities are happening properly in the right way, right timing, and all the deviations are getting reported. All of these needs to be also monitored and reviewed, and the results will have to be communicated to management actually. So this is what is the set of 8 components as part of the 2004 framework. Okay.
Yeah.
And so this is the cube. So it starts with internal environment, objective setting, event identification, risk assessment, response, control activities, information communication, monitoring. And it stretches across strategic operations, reporting, compliance. And it starts with entity level, covers any division, functions, etc., covers any business unit, subsidiary, so all across. Okay, so then now coming into 2017. So what here the 2017 framework is primarily highlighting is ERM has to be integrated into all the processes across the entity. Everywhere it has to be integrated, only then the success can be seen. So that's one key highlight in this 2017 framework. So it starts with that actually. So ERM needs to be integrated, meaning it has to take the source also from that process, say strategy setting process. Okay, so integrated means so the source data should also come from that strategy or the objective setting process, and the output of ERM should also be brought into the strategy setting process, and wherever changes etc needs to be done, the strategy needs to be amended, your objectives needs to be amended. So that is what I mean by integrated totally. So that needs to be all across, not just in strategy. So throughout all your functions, departments at various levels, so that your performance is also tracked in a right way. So from strategy, your goals, then your targets, everything comes in, right? So whether you are on the right track, all of that will be ensured by integrating totally the ERM with the company. Okay, so these are some key points. Plus, also the new framework, also as I mentioned, talks about how ERM has to adapt. Okay, based on the data analytics, etc., that is now available. Right, you have artificial intelligence, predictive data analytics. So many things are available. So how ERM can adapt and use these to further strengthen. Okay, so all those are getting highlighted here. And it is also talking about standardization. So if a company has processes across various geographies. Okay, so I've seen like in companies having say different geographies. Say in America, they may be using a particular system, totally a different system in another geography. Say Australia, a different application accounting system would be used, or different process controls would be used. Okay, so the ERM framework, the new one, the 2017 update, stresses on standardization. So have a standard approach for your ERM across geographies. So that is also a key point that it is highlighting. Okay, and so here it is all talking about changes, right? So we saw continuous, we saw the ERM has to be continuous process. Okay, so any changes in the market scenario. So in the last 2 years, it's like so many things, right? So because of COVID, after COVID, then Russia war, because of Russia war, how globally businesses are getting affected, etc. So just an example. So any such changes, ERM has to adapt or consider those changes and accordingly come up with its output. Okay, so that is very key. Otherwise, it will become outdated, right? Whatever ERM output you have, it will be outdated the next day. Okay, and another point that this update is stressing is board of directors oversight. Okay, so we saw as part of the definition itself, ERM is a process that is defined by board of directors and management, right? So the 2017 update is also stressing on what board of directors can do or should do using the ERM. So they can use this ERM output, the data that it is giving. Okay, say for example, the output of ERM, you have say top 10 risks. Okay, so top 20 risks. So board would have to go through those and understand. Sorry, you said something, sir. Okay, and I'll go back. Okay, so we'll continue. So
Yeah.
board oversight. So I was mentioning right. So a board should go through the top set of risks. Okay, the top 20 risks, etc., and understand from the management how they are ready to face these risks or address these risks. So they can actually challenge the management on all their decisions. Say suppose management wants to acquire a company, they want to announce a particular set of dividend, they want to fix this as the managerial remuneration, etc. So everything can be questioned. If the targets, goals, etc. All of these can be questioned, reviewed, and understood by the board of directors. So this framework, the revised framework, is designed to assist board in fulfilling their oversight role. So thereby, it is actually stressing on the oversight role first of all, and it is also saying that the ERM results can be used by board of directors in these ways, for these aspects. Okay, so this where mergers.
Just so I have a question. So for an organization, the ERM, that will there be a separate team for
Yes.
ERM? And
Yes. Yeah, there'll be a separate team. Yeah, it's not a one-man exercise. No, it's very huge. So there'll be a team that will constantly keep working on. There will be a risk and controls team, so that will be separate. That will be for the internal controls, etc. This is totally different. ERM, totally you will have a separate team and who will focus on these processes.
they'll be assisting the board of directors. So basically, these are,
Yes.
yeah, okay.
Yes.
And the core members will be from one of them from management side and
Yes. So ERM, you will have multiple. It's not just financial, right? So you will have a market research, MBAs. There could be technical people. So suppose a company is into automobile, etc. Okay. So from that perspective, it will be a wide combination. You will have a complete set of people.
Even from marketing also people will be
yeah,
there.
okay.
In
Yes.
research team also people will be there.
Yes. Marketing,
I
research.
heard Bajaj has got a lot. TVS company has got a very big setup for this purpose.
Hmm. Right, right. Yeah. So all well-established companies, and where they are regulation driven also, right? So they will all have this team. So mostly, if you see the financial companies, okay, so insurance companies, etc., they will mandatorily have this.
So it is more not complaints driven, or is it more self driven?
Both, both. So compliance driven. So where the companies are so much compliance driven, so they need to definitely have this in place. Otherwise, they cannot face all those compliance requirements. There are companies where it is also self-driven. So companies which are already on that SOX line, companies which are matured in their internal control framework, etc. Right, and if they are in, say, some uncertain geographies or markets, or companies who are expanding geographically, etc. So all these companies will voluntarily have these ERM functions. Okay, I'll proceed. Yes. So the benefits, okay, so benefits, so by now we know, okay, so one is compliance aspects, then mainly the objectives are right, that is the strategy is right. Wherever risks are there, it gets addressed. Wherever opportunities are there, we make use of those opportunities. And so there will be a right set of targets, and you meet those targets, right? So you have more achievements, not failures, or target is not met, etc. Those scenarios will not come. So reduced performance variability, that's what we have here. So increased positive outcome, reduced performance variability, and improved resource deployment. Okay, so that's because first opportunity here itself we have, right? The right set of strategy, right set of goals are set. So improved resource deployment and enhanced enterprise resilience. This is because, see, any change, ERM will catch that, right? So any adverse effect because of market changes, etc., the organization can come back very quickly. That's enterprise resilience. So all these are the major benefits of ERM. Okay, and so this we already saw. Primarily, your strategy is aligned with your mission, vision, etc. So an aligned strategy, and one more thing is the chosen strategy works in conjunction with the risk appetite. So this is all through. Okay, so throughout ERM you will have this. First of all, my strategy is right. That is what ERM will ensure. Strategy is right from my vision, mission, from that perspective also, and it is right from the risks perspective also. Okay, so whether even considering after all the risks, still my strategy is fine. So all that assurance you will have. Okay, so now going into the 2017 framework. Okay, so here, see, whatever 2004 framework we saw, it is all here. It is all same, more or less same. So what COSO has done is they have clubbed the components. Earlier we had 8 components, I said, right? Those 8 components are clubbed here and there, and 5 components we have now. Okay, the revised framework has 5 components and 20 principles under that. So what were those 8 components? We can quickly brush up and then come back so that it's easy.
So the
Easy to
first one
follow.
is internal environment,
Yes, correct.
and then objective setting.
Perfect.
Objective setting. So once they set their objectives, it's gonna be events
Yeah.
identification, and then risk management, and then
Yes.
risk
Risk assessment, and then
assessment,
risk, yes, and then risk response.
response, and then control monitoring activities.
Yeah. Control activities, and you
Information
have,
communication. Okay. Yeah.
yes, and monitoring. Yeah. So these are the 8, right? So now what we have here is, so here it starts with governance and culture. So we saw internal environment, right? You mentioned that first one, right? So the same thing here, it is given as governance and culture, and it is stressing on board oversight. Okay, so first that we didn't have that in the earlier framework. Okay, so earlier framework we spoke about ethics, integrity, accountability, then commitment to competence, etc. Those are continuing here, but the one main thing that is getting stressed here is the board's oversight. So ERM enables board to handle its oversight responsibilities efficiently. Okay. So next it talks about operating structures. So the organization has to establish operating structures in pursuit of strategy and business objectives. So that is also very key. So whatever strategy and objectives you are fixing, so to achieve that, you need to define your systems, process, procedures. Your operating structure needs to be defined, right? So that is also included here. So board risk oversight, operating structures. So then this is all we know, desired culture. So what type of behavior, desired behaviors, right? So your code of ethics, all of that come here. Then commitment to core values. Okay, then one more additional point here is attract, develop and retain capable individuals. So this is very key. So you are defining, say, your strategy, you're defining the desired behavior, culture, etc. How all these is possible unless we recruit and develop the right set of individuals, right? So that is why that is more important. So all your recruitment related activities and your induction trainings and how you retain the capable individuals. So that is also a key point that is captured here. So all of these are part of this governance and culture, the first component. Okay, so the basic points on ethical values, integrity, commitment to competence, plus your board oversight aspect, plus the operating structure, plus your people. So that is what is a part of the first component. Okay, next we had there as objective setting, right? So that is here same strategy and objective setting, component 2. But we have like some principles that are listed out under this. So how does a company handle the strategy and objective setting? So they have come up with, say, you analyze the business context. So business context meaning your place, the area, what kind of business you are into, all of that you analyze the business context. Then you define the risk appetite. Okay, then come up with alternative strategies. So which are those other options that a company can have in order to address, say, the risks, and then formulate the business objectives. So earlier it just had two lines, right? Objective setting, the company needs to have a process to have the right set of objectives and strategy. So how to have that? We have 4 principles that are formally included here. So you analyze the business context, have the risk appetite defined, whether you're conservative or you're more risk oriented, you want to take more risks, all that comes here. Then you have alternative options, then you select which are the objectives that you want to do. Okay, then we
So
had
just a question: is there any possibility of them asking? So how was it COSO 2000? I mean ERM 2004 framework different from 2017? So is there a possibility of asking a question like that, or
could be, because see 2017 framework highlights few things, right? Board oversight, okay, that is very key. Then the having the right sort of people. So that differences, it is better to mark and keep. So in the first, so you have 8 components there, here you have 5, but 5 components includes 20 principles. So it has all the points plus
okay.
additional points actually. So it is
Yeah,
better
okay.
to highlight and keep. Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, then moving down to performance. So thereafter, into 2004 framework, we saw, right, after the objective setting, you had event identification, risk assessment, risk response, right? So all those are covered here and they have grouped this under performance. So you identify the risk, you assess the risk, and one key point here, prioritize the risk. Okay, so this is key. There are 2 key points here: prioritizing risk and developing the portfolio view. These 2 are additional points here. Okay, so you the earlier framework also had this, but it was not specified clearly, right? So now they have included this as one key principle, prioritizing risk. So when you assess the likelihood and impact, etc., you do a control risk rating. Okay, it's a ranking of the risks, right? So that is what is called as prioritizing risks here. So you have the high risk aspects, so that you can focus on those high risks, and the other ones you can ignore or have a different risk response mechanism. Okay, and portfolio view. So the organization develops and evaluates a portfolio view of risk. So overall view of, so these are my portfolio view of my top risks. Okay, so this, say, under market risk, these are the key risks. Under my compliance or financial risk, these are my key ones. So a portfolio view is also included here as a key point. And review and revision. So in the last framework also we saw this needs to be monitored, reviewed, etc. So change, right? Any change, etc. The ERM framework has to identify those change and accordingly address those changes. Then review risk and performance. So the organization reviews the performance. So where the currently they are as against the objective, say as against the target, etc. So any revision is required. All those gets covered here. Review risk and performance, and ERM framework is also reviewed. Okay, so that is also covered in the earlier framework also under monitoring, right? The ERM processes are monitored, etc. Right? So any improvement aspects gets covered here. So that is what is review and revision. So you review, monitor, and you revise. Revise not just because of review and monitoring, revise because of any changes and the performance aspects also, both. So then comes information communication. This was already there last time also, but very, like, they have clearly mentioned what are those: leverage the information systems. So use the company's systems and get your source data, etc. Then use the company's communication channels to communicate the output of ERM, both in and out, right? Both. And reporting on risk, culture, and performance. So the organization reports on your risk and performance at multiple levels and across the entity. So this is your reporting channel.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's what is summarized in this diagram: governance, culture, strategy, objective setting, performance, review and revision, and then communication, reporting. Okay, and these points were I've already covered. So what 2017 framework is including is that ERM has to adapt. I said no, ERM has to adapt to the data that is available now compared to 10-15 years back. Now the availability of data analytics, data visualization, this predictive analytics, etc., is like too much now, right? So with data you can do much more. So ERM can use these and evolve actually. And automation. So automation is very key aspect. So earlier with manual data, very less could have been possible, but now everything, right? Your factory floor is fully automated. We have seen like companies having fully automated factories, right? No human involvement itself. So robotic automation, they say, right? So we have reached that levels now. So I've seen companies where only packaging, you need a human to sit there and do the packing aspects only. Everything else will be automated, right? The input of raw material, the manufacturing, the quality review, then final output, all fully automated systems are coming up. So then for this kind of a system, obviously your risks, everything will be different, right? By the time you identify an error, there will be already processes that are over, because machines, right, they're very fast. So you identify an error, already there will be some raw materials that would have been used, some manufacturing cycles would have got completed, etc. So it's too fast. So situations are different now. So according to that, your entire ERM will change. Okay, so that is another key aspect. The fourth one is managing cost of risk management. This was earlier also there, but now the stress is on optimization. So because I have a huge ERM process, it should not affect my original goal or whatever original objective that the company wanted, right? It should not become a heavy process. So it has to, any process has to be an optimal one. So we call that as control optimization. Okay, so controls, that comes up in controls. Similar to that here also. So whatever process we are having, the cost versus benefit you need to see. Okay, so according to that level, we need to have or deploy the ERM or use the ERM's output according to that. And building stronger organizations. So this is where we spoke about resilience, etc. Okay, so these are the four additional trends that the 2017 framework is highlighting.
So this says that these are the areas wherein this will trigger changes to 2017 framework in the coming years.
No. So what, see, 2017 framework is highlighting that these are the things that will have an impact on your ERM process. See, a company is having an ERM process, okay? So it had this process 5 years back. But now, because of the automation, say some factories, some of my factories are more automated compared to how it was, say, 10 years back. Okay, so now the same ERM what I had few years back, I cannot use the same thing, right? So right now the machines that I'm using, my vendors, the time of my production, all those are different. I'm just giving you an example.
Yeah.
So that is what the 2017 framework is highlighting. Because of these, there is an impact on the ERM process as a whole. So the ERM process has to adapt to these and evolve, and it has to improve and change, etc. Yeah.
Okay.
That's, yeah. Okay, so maybe before we go into internal controls, maybe a quick brush up on the ERM we can do, then we can move to internal controls.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. So should I summarize maybe? So we saw the definition of ERM firstly. Okay, so it is affected by the entity's board of directors at the management level, and it's a process basically. So you want to do that, Manikandan, or you're okay with me summarizing?
Summarizing, huh? I have made some points. I can
Okay.
I can read. So
Okay, sure.
basically, yeah, enterprise ERM is nothing but it's a process affected by the BOD and other management personnels, which involves strategy setting. So basically, it involves strategy setting, uh, which helps in identifying managing the risks based on the risk appetite of the organization. So
Perfect.
this in turn, on a whole, will make the organization achieve its own objectives.
Super. Perfect. Yes. So very good. That's all. I think there's nothing more to add. We covered everything. Then the purpose and objectives, if you have taken notes.
Yeah, I've taken notes for all. So the
Super.
purpose, what I've done is the purpose is nothing but it is more of risk based than a control based.
Yes.
Majorly, there are two purposes of this. So it helps in efficient and effective utilization of resources. So basically,
Yes.
and the next one is in ensuring and protecting the entity's reputation. So this is done through compliance and reporting.
Okay. Right. Fine. So there just a couple of things. So yeah, your objectives and goals are achieved. That is also a main purpose and objective, right? So ultimately, the company's goals and objectives have to be achieved. Then your risks are continuously assessed. Okay, that continuous thing that has to come.
Yeah. So the next is your our objectives. So our objectives and COSO ERM framework will we can actually do it hand in hand. I mean, we can understand hand in hand. So the first one of the first objective is overall objectives. So it helps us to achieve the overall objectives of the enterprise. Okay, so and then next is the continuous assessment. So we have the continuous assessment of risks, and we'll will act by continuous assessing. You'll know how to mitigate the risk as well. So that is one thing. And then the finance and the performance targets, and then adverse damage, avoiding the adverse damage or reputation of an organization.
Yes, perfect.
So the COSO itself is bucketed into four. So the first is the strategic, then operations, then reporting and complaints. So again, when we tag that with the objectives, then you have the strategic. So strategic actually covers the overall objectives, standard setting and strategic setting and stuff. So next is operations. The operation covers the overall objectives and as well as the continuous assessment of risks and mitigating the risks. And then reporting. So through reporting, we'll be able to know the financial and the performance targets,
Yes.
and we can avoid the reputation by enhancing our reporting and compliances. So that is one thing. And last is the compliance. So it covers. So
Yes.
everything we need to comply with everything as per
Yes.
the relevant laws and regulations.
Yes, yes, perfect. Okay.
And then it's more of 2004 framework and 2017 framework.
Correct.
So yeah.
Okay, super. Nice. You summarized it very well. We can done good. So just few more points on the 2004 and 17 framework. We saw because of the various changes, right, in globalization, automation, all of
Yeah.
that. 2017 came up with a few updates to the earlier framework. So the earlier framework had a set of 8 components, which got evolved and updated into 5
5
components, but
components and 20
20
principles.
principles. Perfect. Yeah. And it goes a logical way. So mostly how I do is I actually try to link up and have a logical flow to the points, so it's easy, you will never forget it actually.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
so you start from the tone at the top, internal environment, then come to objectives,
Objective
then
setting, then
for
event
the
identification. So after
yes,
once you identify the potential events, you will have to basically identify the risks associated with it. So
yes,
identifying and assessing the risk. So based on the assessment, you will know how to respond to the risk. So basically, whether you can accept it, avoid it, share it, or reduce it. So risk responses, and once we identify the risk responses, we can actually control. We'll have to have the control points in place so that risks are mitigated easily. And then information communication. So all these things we have to communicate to the uh, management and the person's
yeah,
entire organization. Then continuous monitoring of the ERM process on a whole.
ERM process, perfect, yes. So the cube, it's just a summary of whatever you said, but one more thing is it starts with entity level, division, BU level, that's business unit, and subsidiaries also.
Yeah.
Subsidiaries also get covered, not just the company. It's consolidated, all your subsidiaries, BUs,
Yeah.
division. Then comes the 17 framework. I'll maybe go to the directly to the components. So whatever you just now said, right, that's getting clubbed under 5 components here: governance, culture, objective setting, performance, review, revision. Last one is on the communication.
Information.
The five, yeah, information and communication. Okay, so some key differences here are the board, risk oversight, operating structures, then people element here: attract, develop, retain the right set of capable individuals. In addition to the earlier ethics, then commitment to competence, all those were there, right? So in addition to that, you have these additional things. Then in strategy and objective setting, they have defined more, they've like elucidated more like points. How do you do that objective setting? Right? Analyzing business context, risk appetite, evaluate alternative strategies, then come up with the business objectives. Then these were already there, the which are getting clubbed under performance. The two key points are the prioritizing risks and having a portfolio view of the risk.
Yeah.
Then these are same. Review revision, you have the same points. Information communication, here it talks about leveraging the information communication to get its source data also, and also leveraging the systems to give its output communication also. Both way, that extra things are explained here. Okay. So I think that is about the ERM. So this is all okay, theoretical, right? So some practical view, maybe I just thought I'll say. So what I have seen is, I've not been part of this exercise. I've not done a proper ERM exercise, but I've seen how companies do this. So you will have, as I said, a separate team who will come and keep interviewing different people, like say production head, procurement heads, finance, the CFOs, etc. So these different function heads would be interviewed, and their view of what is the main risks for them gets captured. Plus quantitative analysis of of the financials, the earlier performance, now current market scenarios, current geographies, future how things will be. So all of these data analytics, predictive analytics, all these information would be analyzed, and a kind of a risk universe would be plotted. Okay, what are the various set of risks, and for each of that risk they would be plotting how likely this risk will materialize, and even if it materializes, what will be the impact. So the impact can be, say, just some 500 rupees, or it can be, say, some $5 million, etc. So
Oh,
things
so
like that.
they may categorize it as a high
High,
impact,
medium,
high,
low.
medium,
Yeah.
low.
Like
Okay.
ABC.
Yes, 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 correct. Yeah. So this is called as heat map analysis. Okay, so in a map, in an x-axis, y-axis, you can have the likelihood and impact plotted. So thereby high likelihood and more impact, right? So on the right top corner would be like the red or on orange,
Okay.
indicating that is where you need to focus. So you have, say, totally some 50 risks. Okay, at the end of this all interviewing process, everything, that entire 50 risks would be plotted in a graph. And then all those risk points coming in the right top corner, which would be in that red or that orange, would be picked up, and that's how the risks are prioritized. So that would be, say, a set of, say, 10 or 15 risks. So those risks would be what the company will
What are the
focus
colors
on and
for
have. So so red, orange, and then green. Some kind of a green gets used. So green is
going
like
with
a
green?
low risk, actually. Low risk you can
Okay,
ignore. Yeah.
right.
Yeah. So that is what is called as a heat map analysis. And actually this top set of risks gets discussed in board meetings and all, and the board of directors will go through this risk. They will understand from the management how they are addressing these, how they are ready to face this. So there could be some open areas still. So it's not like every company is perfect, doing everything well. It is not like that. So even though risks are there, the company will still do well. And even though all the risks are mitigated, the company can land up in trouble. So that's the limitation, right? The human judgment and scenarios beyond human control, all that.
Okay, but in
So
the later sense, I tell like this way. Say when light is not there, when your headlight is not that bright, but still we have a ride on the road with a lot of judgment and based on the place where we are very familiar with.
correct,
That's a sort of a judgment we'll be just making. But especially when it
correct.
is raining, rained heavily, we do not know where is going to be a bump, where is going to be a pitfalls, but we will just go a little slow to avoid a bigger fall. Anyway, so I just bring out a comparison like that. Good.
Nice, nice. Yeah, super. Very true. Very, very well said. That's a simple way of explaining a bigger concept.
Yeah.
Okay, good. So we have come to an end on ERM. So I just thought maybe few more minutes internal controls we will start today, if that is fine, and then we can continue same way all the COSO framework, etc. Maybe we can continue in the next session.
Yeah.
No problem.
That's fine, right? Okay. So 1 second. So this section on internal controls had so many definitions on internal controls. So I actually jotted down in Excel. Okay, so similar to ERM, okay, internal controls is also a process. Okay, so before I go into the Excel sheet, maybe I'll just continue from where we stopped in ERM. So internal controls is also a set of process that is implemented by the board of directors, management, etc. Earlier in ERM, we saw to have a reasonable assurance that the company's goals and objectives are met. Okay, so here also we will have that. Plus, there are few definitions given by, say, SEC, say for US listed companies, a few general definitions are available, then few definitions by COSO. So all of those maybe we can touch upon. So firstly, the first general definition, okay, that is given as in the material. Okay, so internal controls is a process that is designed to provide reasonable assurance that the objectives are achieved and compliance to laws and regulations are obtained. Okay, so it's a process implemented by board management, more or less similar to whatever definition we had on the ERM. Okay, plus there is an additional point, control objectives are also achieved. So internal control is a process that gives an assurance, reasonable assurance that the company's objectives are achieved, compliance to laws and regulations are met, etc. There could be a few other objectives also for that process. Okay, so those are the control objectives. Control objectives are also achieved. So COSO definition, if you see, COSO definition starts with process. Okay, internal control is a process that's implemented by board and management to ensure the control objectives are achieved. What are those control objectives it has given? COSO has given. So it starts with efficiency and effectiveness in operations, reliability in financial reporting, and compliance with laws. So COSO definition I have mentioned as point 2, that is point 2 here. Okay, plus below control objectives. So it is given what are the control objectives. So it talks about operations. So operations needs to be effective and efficient. Your reporting has to be reliable, compliance with laws and regulations. So these are the three major control objectives that the internal control as a process has to ensure and provide reasonable assurance. Okay, in some general definitions, you will also have one more objective, that is protect the company's property. So, okay, one is operation, one is financial reporting, one is compliance to laws. The other one, some definitions will include that internal controls are also addressed to protect the company's property. Okay.
Yeah.
And yeah, so broadly concept wise it is same. ERM focuses, as you said, Manikandan, ERM focuses with a risk approach. Internal controls, we have a controls approach. Yeah. Okay. And SEC definition, if you see, SEC defines internal controls as policies and procedures. Okay, it's not saying process, it's saying procedures actually, policies and procedures that help management directives are carried out and actions are taken to address the risks to achieve entities' objectives. So it is all same content but in different pots. Okay, that's all. So if you understand the concept, you can write definitions. So internal controls, if you see categorization, okay, so these are also followed. So this is not theory actually, these are all followed in companies. Maybe you would have also seen the company that you're working. So every control that you have, right, that will be mapped as whether it is a manual control or it is a fully automated control or semi-automated control. Right, semi-automated control or IT dependent controls, right? So IT dependent controls meaning, say a report is taken and reviewed by the CFO, for example. So then that report is review is an IT dependent control. So first of all, the system has to give you a right report, and then the report gets reviewed by the CFO. So these are like a semi concept. It will have both automated and manual. In nature.
Yeah.
And controls can be financial reporting oriented controls, or it can be operational controls, or sometimes it can be just a business risk oriented control. So any control that will address a financial risk, okay, it will prevent some financial loss, some fraud, etc., then that gets covered under financial reporting category. If it is more to do with the operations, that means suppose a control will prevent say a risk that the target, the target is not target. Okay, for example, you buy from a high cost vendor, for example. Okay, it is not a financial reporting. Just a second. I think I have some time. Yeah, okay. So say you're buying from a high cost vendor, so it is not a financial reporting risk, but it will be definitely a business or an operations risk, right? It will have an impact on the profit element, etc. So those are right, the way you fix your prices. Okay, say your price, that is your selling price. So selling price you are fixing such that your costs are not covered fully. Okay, so things like that will come under operational risk and not under financial reporting. So the next category is fraud risk. Say for this can be where a purchase order is raised. Okay, then subsequently the purchase order gets amended or a value gets changed. Okay, and the revised purchase order, the system will not ask for an approval because say the value didn't change, etc. So earlier purchase order, say you had 5 units, 100 rupees. Now we are changing that into say so that was 500, right? So instead of 5 unit 100 rupees, I make it as 1 unit 500 rupees. Okay, sometimes ERP system will not ask for an approval here. Okay, so again it won't go for an approval. So these are like ways where a fraud can happen. All right, so you end up purchasing lesser quantity with a higher price, etc. So that could be a fraud related categorization. So controls can be preventive, detective, corrective. So there is also, so usually we follow preventive, detective only, but now in our material we have what is also corrective. So control not only detects, it will also correct. So say any review, right, as leadership reviews, any CFO reviews, or an overall function head reviews, etc. It's those reviews will also catch the errors and correct it also, right? So those gets clubbed under corrective, detective. So these two are mostly overlapping. Okay, and preventive risk is where before an issue happens. So for preventive, mostly these are like automated controls. So for example, system will not allow you to proceed further unless you give all the three, right? Your purchase order, invoice, and GRN. So it's like mandatory. So mandatory fields can be set up in the system. So these are preventive controls. Okay, rather than having an invoice getting processed without a GRN, PO, and subsequently you find it out. So in the first stage itself, you have some of these basic controls that get categorized as preventive. I'm just giving you very simple basic examples. Okay. And then ELCs, entity level controls. So entity level controls, you will have authorities, roles, responsibilities defined. Where duties, conflicts, segregation of duties can be ensured, right? So you can have an authority matrix defined. Okay, so this value checks to be approved by 2 people. Above this value, it has to go to the MD, etc. Right, very simple. So authority levels can be defined. And segregation of duties. A person who is setting up the master data, say you're setting up the price master, okay, selling price master, then obviously you should not have access to making a sale order, right? A transaction also you should not do. So you should not have an end-to-end access. So things like that. So then comes review controls. So review controls is supposed to be very reliable set of controls, because everywhere, right, before a return, say a monthly return is filed, it has to be reviewed. Before financials gets published, there will be a review. So review controls will be all across, actually, in multiple places, multiple processes, multiple levels. So spreadsheet controls is a very good area, actually. So where all your Excel based controls get covered here. So most of your data are under Excel, right? Everywhere you will have actually Excel. It's not just ERP system. So everywhere, any analysis, any review, you will have an Excel sheet. So that's why spreadsheet controls become important. So it talks about having a password, protecting the sheet. You can actually protect the sheet from edits, etc. Then where you save that folder, who has access, do you have version controls when you save the files, etc. So all those get covered under spreadsheet controls.
Yeah.
Then comes your SDLC IT general control. So where IT development is in place, right? So a full set of controls are defined. So just as an example, if you have access to development or testing, then you should not have access in the production environment. Then it will be a conflicting one. So things like that you have under IT general controls actually. Okay, so we also have what is called as internal control objectives. Okay, I'll go back to the material now. So we saw I'll come back to this transaction controls. Okay, so this is like, we covered the internal control definition. Sorry, where are we? Yeah, okay, correct. Just 1 second. Yeah, maybe I'll. So here we are, the material starts with SOX and PCOB, etc. So this I will come back to this later, okay, when we talk about SOX specific aspects. So
Sure.
we covered the definition on internal control. So what do you mean by internal control? So we covered that, and the basic categorization of preventive, detective, corrective, etc. And some more categorization given by SEC. So we saw automated, semi-automated, manual. We saw overall entity level controls. Then review controls, then fraud controls, then financial reporting and operational controls, right? And there is also what is talking about safeguarding assets. Okay, so this is throughout. Every control will address the safeguarding assets, plus you have specific controls towards this where your physical security controls, all that will come. Okay, CCTV cameras, things like that. Okay, so internal control objectives. Okay, so what does internal controls try to do? So internal controls are designed to provide again reasonable assurance that the objectives are achieved and compliance to laws and regulations is obtained. So this is coming from the internal controls definition. So overall, ultimately, again, your objectives have to be achieved and your compliance aspects have to be ensured. And so here also they are talking about financial reporting, operational efficiency, laws and regulation. Okay, so these are the three control objectives. I said, no, I can go back to the Excel sheet. So I
Yeah,
mentioned,
yeah.
right, the three things are defined as control objectives. So, so what are these objectives? So to simplify this, okay, so it is everywhere, like valid, timely, recorded, goes here and there. Okay, so we normally would have seen CAVR, right, in our financial reporting assertions, etc. We would have studied earlier.
Completeness.
Yeah, completeness, accuracy, validity, reporting, right?
Yeah.
So somewhere around that, you can try to categorize all this. Okay, so firstly, here they're talking about validity, timeliness, accuracy. Okay, so the supportable, reasonable. So this is nothing but, see, the transaction should have been actually happened, right? So you need to have necessary documentation to support that. So this is talking about the documentation. Then reasonable, so wherever estimations, judgments are all there, you need to have a standard methodology to arrive at that. So you need to have a standard process to have your estimates, judgments, etc., and then come up with a right number. So that is something that it is talking about. So CAVR is basic, so we can try to cover main things by remembering CAVR. Plus additional ones are the supportable, reasonable. Okay, this representation of rights and obligations also as part of financial assertions we would have studied. So CAVR plus this existence, rights, obligations, right? Those assertions we would have studied. So existence meaning whether the transaction actually happened, rights and obligations. So whether the liability if you're booking under vendor, etc. It's the right one, whether the transaction happened and you're rightly recording them there. Okay, and here one more thing, funded. So whether you have sufficient funds to meet the current obligation. So working capital related objective is also there. Appropriateness, the transactions approved directly relate to the goals of the company. So whatever purchases you do, okay, whatever payments you are doing, whether it is all business oriented ones only. Appropriateness. Relevance. Okay, so broadly these are the internal control objectives. So whether you are recording a transaction in a timely manner, accurately, whether it is an appropriate transaction for you first of all, and whether it is valid, it has happened, it is authorized, existence, rights, obligation, all those aspects. Whether it is documented, you have necessary documents, and if it is some estimation or judgments, you have the right set of methodology to arrive at that estimates, etc. Plus your working capital object. These are the full set of internal control objectives. Okay. And okay. So this also we touched upon broadly, we can summarize actually. So internal control activities. So internal control activity definition also I have captured here. We saw, right, control activities. Internal control activities are nothing but policies and procedures that help management directives are carried out, actions taken to address the risks to achieve the entity's objectives. So that is what is an internal control activity. So it's one level down, right? This talks about policies and step-by-step procedures, everything. Okay, again here they have classified, they have given a classification here. So we already saw that. I've summarized in a better way, automated, manual, all that. So here they have given, they are talking about segregation of duties and authorization first. Then comes review controls, information processing controls. And they are talking about also retention of records. So sometimes based on the income tax requirements, etc., you need to retain the records in the right manner. If you're collecting some agreements, some customer agreements, etc., so you need to retain them in a safe, right? You will have some, the companies can have some lockers, safes, etc., and they will retain it there. So that is on the retention of records. And reconciliation, review controls, physical security controls. Then training and monitoring. Okay, so this is again coming under overall entity level controls. Okay, so code of ethics, for example, every year employees will have to go through that training, and they will have to also sign, they have to sign that yes, I have gone through this, I am aware of this, etc. So something like that. Okay, so you can have internal controls trainings conducted. Then you can actually monitor the control. So it's not like you just devise the control and leave it. You monitor the control, you see if the control is working by defining the right set of evidences, documents that are required, and then the control can be tested, reviewed, and the results can be published. Okay, so that is another key element. Then the top level reviews. So different ways of categorization you will have. See, first we saw preventive, detective, corrective. Then SEC came up with some categorization, right? Automated, manual, review, reconciliation, SOD related, fraud control. Okay, then reporting controls. So same way here we have more categorization under internal control activities. So broadly you can start with the top. Top meaning the entity level controls, authorization controls, top level review controls, reconciliation controls. So all the higher aspects get covered. Then your training aspects, right? Like I said, code of ethics you will go through training, sign off, etc. So then comes your automated controls, in where you process transaction in system, right? So system IT dependent controls or fully automated controls, all that you will have. Then comes physical security. So you can have a logical flow. Then physical security, along with that you can club the retention of records also there. So both are like, security of records, security of assets. I think, yeah, broadly these are the three groupings. If you remember, then I think just fine.
Yeah.
Okay, the limitations are similar. Again, human element, collusion, management override. Sometimes companies are small. Okay, they won't say. See, segregation of duty means what I said. See, master data somebody else should do, transaction somebody else should do. but the company will be say only very small, they may be having only one person in that function or two people in that function. So they will say, obviously I cannot bring one more person just for this. So these are inherent limitations. You can have other mitigating controls, some top level review control, etc., so that people are aware there is that control ambience there, so they won't easily do fraud, etc. So things like these are the limitations to internal control. So staff size, judgment element, breakdown in communication training. See, if a training is not adequately conducted, control will fail. Very simple. Then collusion, management override. So these are similar to ERM. The additional things are staff size, limitation, etc. are additional here. Control precision, control sufficiency, again very important. See, actually I am part of the risk and controls function of a company. It's okay. Actually, I'm not handling the finance CFO role. Actually, I'm part of the risk and controls function. So where the control definition, the design of the control is very important. So what is the risk? Is that risk actually getting addressed by that control, right? The way the control is designed or defined, whether it is rightly addressing the risk, that is very, very important. Okay, the relevance of the control and the sufficiency. Sometimes one risk cannot be addressed by one control. You need a set of controls. Overall, it will address that particular risk. Totally, it will together address the risk. So here itself, we have an example here. This is on the banking, cash and bank process. So segregation of duties. So first of all, who has the responsibility of holding cash? Who has the responsibility to do accounting of cash transaction, right? These two should be separate. Then comes your reconciliation of bank statements. Reconciliation itself will give us an assurance that, okay, my deposits are fine, my payments are recorded, there are no leakages, etc. Okay. Then the daily deposit of receipts. So every day cash should not be lying around. So at the end of the day, there has to be a process to deposit it in the bank, or there can be a collection mechanism. The bank can send a person to collect the cash and deposit. So you need to have a mechanism on that. So all these three together will address my risk of no cash leakage, for example. Okay, so this is the section 404 of SOX Act. See, SOX, Sarbanes-Oxley Act is mainly for the US companies. Okay, so whatever companies are listed in the US stock exchange are coming under the purview of Sarbanes-Oxley Act. Okay, so even though the companies are in India, suppose they are registered with SEC and they are listed in US, they will also get covered. So that is how we have, say for example, Infosys, etc., which are also listed there and they are getting covered under SOX requirements. So SOX has its own history because of various frauds that happened, say a few years back. This act was actually published in US. So Sarbanes and Oxley, there are two people who actually defined or brought out this act. So that's why the name Sarbanes and Oxley Act. Okay, so this is like a Bible for internal controls. So what SOX defines is, from a controls perspective, what the companies have to do in order to abide by few of the regulations that SOX gives. So section 404 is very important here. It's like the key. I'm sorry. Yeah, section 404 is very key section. Okay, so what does it say? It says publicly traded firms establish internal controls. Publicly traded firms. Okay, I just covered that. So what do you mean by publicly traded firms? They are listed there. They are registered with the SEC there. Okay, so big or small, every company gets covered if you are listed there. Okay, so SOX Act requires that publicly traded firms establish internal controls related to financial reporting that are documented, tested, and maintained. So first you need to establish, define the control, document the control, test them, review them, monitor them, and maintain them. So that is what it is in a nutshell talking about. Okay, so purpose of these controls is reduce probabilities of corporate fraud. So that's the history behind SOX Act, right? Behind because of various corporate frauds that happened, SOX Act was devised. Right. So in order to be compliant with Section 404, okay, so first of all, detailed documentation of the controls and procedures the companies will have to have. So what controls and what procedures? All those processes, financial reporting processes, okay, anything pertaining to financial reporting, if there is an impact on the financial reporting, then that process, the control procedure, everything will have to be documented. Then you have to test them. Test meaning test whether it is working fine, and it is also designed fine, both design and operating effectiveness, we call it two elements: design of the control, whether it is rightly designed to address the risk, and whether it is also operating fine. So sometimes you design it and keep it, no training was given, nobody is aware of the control was never performed, or it was performed but there was no documentation. Say some reviews are happening but there is no email or no sign off that is a proof or an evidence. So if you don't have evidence, it means that you didn't do the control. Unfortunately, it's like that. If there is no evidence, it means the process was not followed. So all those aspects are covered here. So documenting the control procedures, then testing the control procedures, and reporting the deficiencies. So all of these companies will have to adhere to Section 404. So how does the companies do? Actually, it's a very practical top-down risk assessment that's given in the material here. Okay, so this whole SOX 404 is around financial reporting only. See, earlier we saw ERM, it is everywhere, right? Market research, strategy, technical, everything. But internal controls, SOX means it's only financial reporting, not even operations oriented. I gave some example earlier, right? Say a price, selling price is not fixed in a right way, so your profit gets impacted. So even those will not come part of this set. Here I'm only talking about financial reporting. That means my transactions are reported in a reliable way. Your it starts with your balance sheet, right? So significant elements, significant accounts, significant geographies get selected. So that is called as the first financial statement risk assessment. So that's what we usually call that as. So all the key significant accounts get selected. So how do you select that? You will have to define the materiality levels. So company will have overall materiality levels set, say maybe 1% or 0.5% of the revenue, or 0.5% of the assets, etc. So it can be either way. So I'm just giving some examples. So any account which is above this value will be significant to me. So it's nothing but any error which will have an impact above this monetary value is significant for me. So that is first defined, and then all my significant accounts, geographies, BUs, functions, all of that get selected. Okay, so that's how where you need to look at, that is first filtered out, and then further it is broken down. Okay, so an account means under for this account which are all the various processes that will get covered. Okay, so then the process identification is done. Then for that process, then what are the risks? Then for these risks, then what are the controls? Okay, so that's how a step-by-step top-down risk assessment gets done. Okay, and here even the entity level controls, all that will come at an overall level. So when you start from financial statements, this is one set where you start with significant accounts, then process, then risk and controls, then overall on top entity level controls. So all those will also be covered, because entity level controls will have an impact all across, right? Suppose I have all these transaction level controls, process level controls, but my overall no management entity level controls is not there, then whatever transaction controls I am putting in place will not be effective at all. Even if you have evidences that the controls are passing, if the entity level controls fail, that means everything will fail. So that's the importance for the entity level controls. So am
Yeah.
I going very fast? Sorry if I'm covering too many things. Or you're able to follow, right?
No, able to follow, but I think it's quite a little bit fast actually.
Oh, okay. So then I will slow down. So it's my favorite topic. That's why maybe I'm going fast. Okay. Okay, good. So it's at a high level. Actually, it will be difficult to follow. See, whatever I said are given here in a nutshell. Actually, see, the important financial reporting elements are selected. Then for that, the material risks are identified. Then the entity level controls at overall level. Then whatever financial reporting elements, the material risks that you selected, right? For that, you devise transaction level controls. So then the type of evidence, the timing of evidence, the extent of evidence, all those needs to be defined so that the control can be assessed properly or monitored properly. So that is very key. So these are the key aspects of the top-down risk assessment. So don't worry, these are all high level. There are so many things that are coming subsequently on internal control. So you will not lose or get lost. So much content is there in this chapter. Okay.
So is that overlapping with audit, or how is that internal control is both in BEC as well as in audit?
Actually, to some extent, it is overlapping, definitely. But with regard to COSO framework, etc., it is more detailed here. So it's more COSO principles, COSO framework oriented things are given here. But see, ultimately, it is related to auditing, no? So it will to some extent overlap.
See, wherever possible, you can give some practical example so that
Yes.
these aspects, no, say I will be in a position to visualize in a different way.
Yes.
If the understanding is to be in a opposite way, it is better through an example. We'll be in a position to
Yes.
clear
Yes.
grasp,
Yeah. Yeah.
grip on the
That's
subject.
yeah. Definitely. I'll try definitely to include. So wherever the categorizations, etc., we saw a few examples. So as we go further, also I'll give you how it is practically done. So in fact, whatever here we spoke on top-down risk assessment, right? What I just now said is that is how it's practically done in companies. I mentioned about see materiality levels getting fixed, and any account, any financial statement account above that materiality level gets selected. Okay, so then all the focus goes into those set of financial accounts.
That is easily understandable. See, benchmarking as what is materiality, where it is significant, anything above that is significant.
Yes.
So that we can easily understand.
Yes.
So wherever possible, see, I'm not saying that here I do not understand. So you can tell, see, wherever possible, you can just highlight.
Sure. Sure. So definitely. Yeah. So I think we are broadly done. Whatever I had in plan for today.
Yes, yes, you are close to 2 hours.
I thought I have prepared only for 1.5 hours. I was
I know,
just
I know.
telling sir.
So it is always like that. So I was just expecting somewhere by 3:30 onwards, but you are going great. So I just don't want to stop.
Super, sir. Thank you, thank you. So maybe we will stop with this.
Yeah,
Beyond this, it will become too much to focus on one single day.
Yeah.
So the page that is 5121.10, right? So from here we
fine.
will start in the next session. So more into the COSO framework, all Sarbanes-Oxley points, then Sarbanes-Oxley related requirements. All these will come in detailed subsequently. Okay, so we can
Fine.
continue that in a separate session.
Okay.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
will stop the recording. Is it okay?
Yes.
Okay. Manikandan, can we have